To are. Can I please meet both of you, Menelaus Mazarakis?
Like either kind of push towards like
Cute.
or even just like lowering the barrier for
And Rob is nice looking.
on
What's going on? It's such a cute looking panel. Good casting.
That's a great question. Actually, one company that I've been really impressed by, and another disclosure.
Both of them are like my ideal type.
We're just like throwing disclosure out here. There's a company called Daylight that tries to help people understand what they can do with their tokens. This company is actually really interesting because in a time when a lot of users have kind of like gone away from speculative actions and people are kind of a lot more risk averse to just being on chain.
I'm
Daylight's
so
metrics
impressed.
have actually increased across the board, in part because they are a consumer infrastructure company.
Guess who I'm reaching out
plugs
to?
into wallets, and within your wallet, it basically tells you what actions you can take with your token. So let's say you own an FWB token. That FWB token could give you access to a mint. It can give you access to Discord. It can give you access to an airdrop.
How so cute.
All of these additional actions that in like 2 years ago, we were all like running around in Telegram chats, Discord chats, running around conferences, just trying to figure out what to do in crypto. And Daily has actually emerged as one of those companies that I actually use the product quite often because I'm always finding new things I can do with my crypto. And at the core, it really is improving usability of tokens, because tokens are just a representation of a relationship that you have with a project or a financial asset. And the beautiful thing about crypto is you can kind of follow that ownership and convert that into so many other things. So like participating in a governance proposal, like coordinating with the group to purchase an asset, going to an IRL event. These are all things that increase the net value that users get from holding tokens, and companies like Daylight are really powering that accessibility.
Yeah, I think you also bring up a point of like the in real life attendance of things. So, like full disclosure, we are investors in POOP, which does kind of proof of attendance. So any different events or anything, you're able to mint, and it shows kind of like your on-chain history of like, or a representation on-chain of like your in real life activity. So that is something, again, where like to kind of hit back and circle back on what we've said in the beginning, it's forming these large data pools that are open and accessible for everyone to kind of build these respective models on top of. Whether you're a Farcaster, a Lens, a CyberConnect, or any other of these social protocols or different teams that are like, focusing on it, it's something where all these things and like really hitting home then on curation and then forming like one user's identity and overall reputation. So with that, it kind of hits back on what Mene said, where like if you're competing or if you're mentioning on protocols or like governance forums, if you're participating in DAOs, like you're starting to form this like on-chain record of all your behavior, your different actions, where right now, no one, like what I put on LinkedIn, there's no one really checking that, but everything I do on chain, there is a history that can back up whether I should be like in consideration for a different role, or if I do qualify for this airdrop or anything within a specific community. So I think really to hit home and like visualize all that is something where that is again something that kind of Web3 offers, and a lot of these different protocols are going after.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, POOP's a good example because they've actually permeated into a lot of really interesting Web2 brand partnerships like the NBA. And I think that the more examples we can have of Web3 companies and products powering Web2 experiences, I think we're just going to be able to onboard a lot more people into the space. And also at the core of it is like bring people closer to their communities and help people really feel proximity to their interests.
Yeah, speaking of kind of like the Web2 world, I know your partner Jeff recently wrote a post about kind of like Instagram NFTs, and definitely hitting on that for the past couple of years, where Instagram, I do think, will kind of be the ultimate ending point for at least visualization of NFTs. Where I'm thinking, kind of like, have you seen a lot more into that respective data? Like, have you seen other platforms starting to like leverage that, as well as like from a usage on a Polygon level? I think that's also interesting to see a lot of these Web2 brands get pulled into Web3 through that channel.
I mean, Totally, it's a great observation because you're now starting to see the tide shifting from incredibly crypto native user experiences to now a lot of Web2 brands, which over the past year and a half have kickstarted their metaverse product groups, their Web3 product groups, and are now actually starting to come to fruition. Instagram and Facebook are great examples because they recently launched NFTs to both the platforms. Instagram had their first NFT launch across a bunch of very carefully curated creators, and they all sold out in minutes. And that's a really great example of creator monetization and creators actually, one, being able to make money on the platform, but two, being able to actually own their art. And I think they are working on some kind of royalty system, but that's a great example of an established Web2 company adopting the NFT medium. And you can definitely believe that as the metaverse vision kind of continues to manifest, those NFTs are going to be on chain, are going to be redeemable in other virtual experiences. The meta is going to be just an interconnected set of they call it the family of apps, where I'm sure you're going to have digital collectibles. You're going to be able to move them across all of your communities. It's going to be really interesting. The other platform that we're seeing and that I've personally been looking at is Reddit. And Reddit, interestingly enough, has has minted over 6 million NFT avatars. And the growth is pretty incredible because they've single-handedly onboarded over 5 million people to start crypto wallets. Part of it is because they've made it so easy to redeem using these Polygon NFTs. And also part of it is they've actually stripped away a lot of the language and the terminology of, they don't call it an NFT, they call it an avatar. And it looks just like what we've been primed to see over the last 5 or so years as our identities have become more digitized, they've become more fluid, and these
Okay,
avatars
Delphi Digital.
An entry point into
You want to invest in me?
new communities and new networks that are being built.
Just because I want to meet you.
One thing that you kind of see across technological shifts is every major technological shift in history is all about creating net new networks with a new paradigm. And that's exactly what the Reddit avatars have done. They've created net new networks around a different data type, verifiable on chain. And it's just really interesting to see them experiment with the combination of familiarity of this is an avatar, but it's also on chain.
So cute.
And then the novelty.
I mean, no, both of them. I can't even choose.
So,
Chapter 1, Minilos.
I think Reddit is really innovating on this front.
Greek.
Yeah. Between the Instagram and Reddit examples, I do think that both of those, even if those users were just to stay on those two platforms alone, the benefit from all of this is anyone who's doing any form of on-chain data sourcing, whether it be all the platforms that we mentioned, this is a great opportunity to kind of pull those users from those platforms into the more Web3 native platforms that are kind of acting as those one-to-one differences between Web2 and Web3. Which kind of brings me to another point. Have you been taking a look at any of the respective on-chain data where, as we are getting more robust markets, do you think a privacy perspective, what happens when zero knowledge protocols are kind of implemented on top of it, like a SESMO from an identity standpoint, or even just from using Guild and kind of their balancing product in a way? Do you think that they're what happens when privacy and more shielded transactions enter the space? Do you think that it will disrupt data in any way, and how is this protecting the user?
Yeah, well, yeah, you'll have a lot of really good thoughts on SESMO because Delphi mentioned SESMO, but one interesting thing that we've seen is as there's more data available, users are going to want to be able to choose what information is publicly available.
Venture, okay, yeah, both of them are VCs. I get it. I get it.
That other users can see exist versus kind of more hidden. So Guild, for example, Guild is kind of a consumer infrastructure company that connects people's on-chain identities to groups. And one really cool thing that they do is they basically verify all your on-chain
New York, of course. I mean, look at New York.
They verify that you are.
You know, that's why like, people are so overwhelmed by me, because like New York. Of course you're overwhelmed because it's New York City. You can't beat that.
The broad point here is
there's
like
no way
is going to be really important as data systems are open, and there are certain interesting innovations in ZK proofs that actually are able to preserve privacy.
Yeah, so definitely just a quick background, Delphi is investors in both Guild and CSMO. From the CSMO privacy perspective, it's basically like an Ethereum profile with like anonymous attestations. So like with these respective things that you mint on chain, think of it as like more of like in a very dumbed down version or a basic version.
How come this is New York for you again?
Co-op, but more on like what you can choose to like attest to and not. So this is a way, like I think it was back, Tushar himself, like kind of said like, oh, this is a way to flex like your on-chain wealth without admitting or showing that like your identity itself. So it gives you access to a token gated like community privately. It allows you to kind of like, again, show your DeFi score.
This is the kind of VC I'd like to, you know, get money from.
Which is again similar to a lot of these like on-chain data points that people are going to be able to choose whether they want to reveal or not. Which brings to another point of like kind of monetization. So with the introduction of like a lot of these ZK protocols over the next couple 12 to 18 months, there is going to be a lot of like private and withheld information, but it's up for kind of these more base protocols like your CyberConnect, your Lens, your Barcaster to incentivize users to reveal that. And that's kind of like the difference where today we don't have like the ability to like
no, I vote for
Apple
the
kind of goes through their privacy aspect
Greek
saying,
guy.
okay, we're going to protect it, but it all still lives on their servers. Where this now gives the individuals and respective account holders like, hey, if I want to show this information of respective social activity, I'm going to get some reward of this that is of something that is substantial. And if I don't want to, I can opt right back out. So I do think this is going to force, again, these different protocols, these different applications to really think through like how to monetize, like whether it be from like the user level.
Can I find you on Twitter?
Like, fees that are and different experiences that
are
are offered. Do you have
surely
again, insight into like different potential monetization ways?
Oh my
I do think there's ways to do kind of like batch transactions depending on like, what you're actually minting. But we'd love to hear more on that.
Yeah, I mean this is another $1 million question because a lot of protocols and products are experimenting with different ways of giving users the ability to monetize. In no other system have we basically eliminated the middleman, the like Apple tax, the Google tax of the 30% or the 10% that you pay to one centralized company. And now there's so many different ways that creators and individual users with ownership of their data and their content that they can actually make money. I've seen a lot of different models. One,
oh my god,
being, like for very like
many
places just off of transaction data.
And you're my chosen one now.
And transaction rates, kind of like
I'm gonna be stalking you.
I've seen gas fees off of like L1s that are powering projects. I'm curious, like on your end, Rob, like what are the most interesting ways that you've seen, and maybe not interesting, but most durable ways that people are consistently being rewarded for their inputs? Because that's actually one thing that I think Web3 is sometimes at fault at. Web3 like produces a lot of lopsided incentive mechanisms where maybe a small group will really be able to benefit, and it's the incentive mechanisms still need to kind of be worked out.
Oh my god.
Yeah, a couple that really kind of stick out to me are different, like obviously revealing kind of not necessarily your identity, but your data and creating that marketplace as a whole.
I mean, look how cute this guy is.
Like, oh, I have this NFT that can be like traded and I get fees based off of it. It's like, oh, I'm going to reveal my entire profile, and this can be kind of uploaded into a database, whether it be from like taken off chain where different like algorithms can kind of like optimize around certain things. So it's taking kind of like your traditional model and like taking it up like half a notch. So more of a 2.5 way where you're giving your data away, but you are getting some reward to it because of that marketplace, which kind of goes back into kind of your take rate aspect. Like there are things of what people like want with this respective data. So I do think there's exchanges who will pay for specific wallet data. You mentioned Daylight itself, like they clearly want like as much data as possible. So how do you incentivize people to give up like kind of like
look at those
and just keeping that
pieces in his hand
going? I also think like it could be even as very simple as a queue model. So whether you have something that needs to be minted on like a daily basis, or if you know like the value is creating more of like a pixelated image or like a PO-op, like, and the best time is to mint at a certain point, it creates kind of like this auction, and there's always going to be a spot or like a way to bid for that top spot. Because I always like think back is like if PO-op had like kind of like an auction model where how much would Nike prevent Adidas from ever minting PO-ops? And I feel like that is something that a lot of these businesses, like once they really sink into and understand what they're doing and like how gas works, is something that they can be very competitive in a more like Web3 sense versus kind of like the traditional aspect where everyone is like buddy in like the press, but more kind of nefarious in like closed doors.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting when companies start trying to game theory out like what would competitors do. I think to really get into like the mainstream of Web2 brands, my intuition is that that is one level of abstraction too far for like a Nike to like base an entire
stacked
like revenue
bracelets
stream off of what Adidas, off of like preventing Adidas from benefit. But it's definitely an interesting model.
Yeah, and I do also think that at the end of the day, there is so many different models that can work, and there will be experimentation, whether you are in like kind of like a small niche that is able to monetize around like a one specific use case, or you're a larger protocol that's looking to kind of seek out like a large way to kind of monetize, whether it be off users, off of kind of like the kind of base layer, which you're seeing a lot of teams move more towards like the security layer of Cosmos, and so on. I think one thing that we actually haven't addressed yet, which I think you guys have done like quite a bit of investments, is on like kind of the gaming infrastructure and like where that kind of like moves on like kind of like your social identity, and just also like the interoperability between different things that you can mint and bring across games.
Totally, yeah, it's a great question. Gaming's been one area that we've been interested in because there are over 2 billion gamers in the world, and when we think about activities that don't really need a lot of education and onboarding for Web3, gaming is just a prime use case. The thing with a lot of crypto games is a lot of them have been really fueled
Beard is better. Beard is better.
Games that are genuinely
no Beard, I wouldn't even notice you.
Media component. They have distribution, and so we've actually seen a lot of Web2 gaming studios try to now experiment with, okay, can we include like an NFT component? Can we improve some in-game incentive? Because they've already nailed
I don't like your profile photo.
Want to really focus on the ways that crypto really make the game more fun. On the topic of gaming infrastructure, one ecosystem that we've been really bullish on is the StarkNet ecosystem, and in part because Starkware allows for really high throughput transactions that allow very complex games to be built completely on chain. So like imagine like maybe you're playing a first person shooter or a board game or kind of like a fight game, and every action you make is on chain and can be tracked. A disclosure here, we invest in this company called Cartridge. Cartridge is a really cool company because they basically are a Web3 version of Steam. So it's a gaming arcade that aggregates a lot of the games that will be built on the StarkNet ecosystem, but it tacks on a unified gaming wallet that acts as a financial wallet across all of the games. So you can basically store assets from each of the games on this unified wallet, and you can kind of share your activity and your progress in the games and pick up where you left off. And
you are my
the amazing thing is you can actually discover and curate games and find really cool on-chain games on top of Cartridge. Cartridge actually they recently launched or they onboarded their first fully on-chain game. So if people want to check it out, that's another company that they've done a really great job of focusing on the user experience and the onboarding. They have implemented account abstraction. They make it really easy to onboard without having to have a seed phrase. You can use your email and password, and so it makes account recovery a lot easier. And it just like when you see the experiences left and right, seed phrase, no seed phrase, and then the quality of the experience, it really does change the game in terms of thinking how big could this be. but gaming infrastructure is definitely like a very interesting area where we're going to need to be able to facilitate billions of dollars of payments. Like right now, Fortnite and Roblox, they make billions of dollars a year on things like skins. And so even in an area like digital fashion, I know Rob, you're interested in digital fashion, slightly separate from gaming, but these different ways of expressing ourselves online, we're going to need to be able to process payments and
Right.
Be able to move across games seamlessly with unified identity. So that's one thing that we've been bullish on at Chapter One.
Yeah, and I think it would be a disservice not to also mention from the StartNet ecosystem, like Matchbox style, and like just a lot of like the on-chain analytics that they've been creating from like the incubation level for a lot of the games. Because everything that Cartridge is building, like you still need to have all these different data sources to create a lot of these different identities. So the two in tandem like kind of form like a powerhouse. And again, it all just like filters back to creating that robust data source that all these other teams can build on top of, that can really like connect all these different ecosystems. And that's where I think Matchbox does a great job, Cartridge as well. And full disclosure, we're investors in Matchbox, not Cartridge. So just to be clear for everyone else.
We are investors in both. For sure.
So I think like it looks like we kind of are wrapping up with like the next like 5 minutes or so. So I think like it wouldn't be kind of like a Web3 panel at this point in time without like mentioning AI. It feels like with ChatGPT and all these other like different implementations, like AI is like the biggest thing. You're seeing a lot of like crypto funds even dip their toes into it in like lead rounds. So do you think this is on the hype side of things?
Yeah, I heard Delphi is turning into an AI fund. Is that accurate?
No words here. I can't say anything. We definitely do have a couple associates and analysts who are interested in a lot of AI, but nothing too concrete yet.
How cute is this panel?
Yeah, I mean, AI is definitely the flavor of the month. It definitely is really funny seeing
I just
kind of like
can't. But like, look, I have to say, Rob, you're so cute as well.
Full blazing crypto to now AI. I think the cool thing about AI is you can actually see a lot of the step function growth and improvements in just like the raw power of compute, in the raw power of intelligence and data that is able to spit out after like human inputs, which is one area where I think crypto, was at risk in the last cycle of losing the plot, because it was kind of a black box. Like you do one thing in your wallet, you submit a transaction, and then on the other side, like you just have money or you don't have money, and it was really hard to kind of paint the narrative of like how crypto was providing ownership, how it was giving trust to systems. But AI, I mean, a lot of our companies are experimenting and exploring AI as well. There's going to be a lot of applications across generative art. Being able to, I think there's going to be huge applications in anything that's powered with like metaverse experiences, where avatars and collaborative media is relevant. Let's say like Rob and I are trying to create a show together. We can actually have GPT write the entire script, and we can focus on higher leverage things. So I think it's not just going to be focused on AI, on crypto, but AI really is a foundational shift across technology.
Yeah, to echo what you said, I think there's going to be a lot of like trial and error with different like use cases, but it's really focusing, like there's always going to be, in my opinion, like at least a human up to like in the process of being hand-holding to a certain point in time. But it's up to their like kind of the back office activities. If you can start automating those to a certain point where that human only has to engage like 10% of the time versus like 90%, now you're freeing up so much more where that person can be more creative, shift towards more different roles, and kind of expand that business in a lot faster with like less of the speculative side of things and more of like, oh, this is actually powering things forward. So I do think that, as well as from like,
Rob,
a
how do I
security
find you?
standpoint, we're going to see like a lot, again, with the on-chain data and everything, all these different engagements. There's going to be a lot more things you can do with these algorithms the minute they can actually go on-chain versus being computed off-chain, which they currently are, for at least the time being.
Totally agree.
All right, I think
it is pretty cool what ChatGPT comes up with. I don't know if you played around with it, Rob, but it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I've started shifting to just like tweets on ChatGPT. I have tons of like paragraphs already ready to go. So expect a huge content tour and a push over the next couple months.
Nice,
Can I
nice.
find you on Twitter
We're
now?
gonna get to 10K followers soon.
Yeah, you know it. All right, it looks like we have Winnie back. So
Yes, Wendy,
over to you.
thank you, gentlemen, for the great discussion. And you really did something amazing with just the two of you. Bummer that we didn't have Kiara on
Just
as
the
well,
two
but
of them?
that was a great conversation.
Hello?
We actually had some
The
questions.
best
for
man
you.
in the whole
The first one,
Let's get
New
it.
York.
yeah, pull up a little bit of everything that you touched on just now with tangible use cases, with incentivization, and with user research. So a lot of the use cases that you guys talked about just now kind of surround creators and curators. And for those of you interested in remix culture, if you will, we have another panel later with Kyle from Multicoin about
I can see
specifically
New Yorkers
how
like from far
CyberConnect
ahead
sits in
and far
contributes to remix culture
away.
and decentralized IP universes is the term that he used. So stay tuned for that. But back to the question. So since those use cases surround creators and curators, what about the everyday user who doesn't actually have any tangible works of art that they can monetize from, who doesn't actually have any tangible content that they're looking to monetize? What happens then, and what would incentivize them?
So I think just like the initial things that we mentioned earlier in the chat was the ability just to follow someone and kind of like, it's okay to lurk in Web3 because you're able to see all these different on-chain activities. And that kind of gives someone like the confidence and like kind of holding the handrail in order to like get up to speed with how everything's doing, how are different flows going. Like there are like a little bit of a learning curve, but it's up to kind of the things that Manny discussed where it comes to account abstraction, really thinking through like having no seed phrase and being able to log in with an email. All this stuff is just lowering the barriers for teams and like individuals, especially like my mom and dad, to enter this space rather than kind of like, okay, I have to memorize this 12 words. What is this hardware device? What do I do with this? And getting calls from them in the middle of the night being like, what happened? So
yeah,
yes, why not?
I think that's a great example. I want to call out an area that I think is kind of underserved in the Web3 consumer space, which is a lot of emerging markets have a lot of different user preferences and customer segmentation. So when I was working at Libra, the main use case for Libra was international remittances and movement of money cross border. And so it doesn't just have to be how do we help people make money on chain, but how do we actually reduce costs and make it seamless for people to transact with finances? And I think payments is going to be a huge use case that it doesn't have to deal with necessarily creators or influencers or these DAOs that are just like really some would say like kind of like really deep in the degen activity, but just like everyday use cases on sending money cross border to Mexico. I'm Greek. We send money back to Greece. Sending money to Greece.
So he's Mexican and the other one is Greek. Okay.
Nearly 0% transaction fee. That's transformative over compounded by millions of people. So I think that is one huge user value that I think being kind of like in the deep crypto space, we kind of lose sight of like what are the everyday use cases that people outside of like the Western world can also use. And that's one area that we've been focusing on a lot at Chapter 1 on emerging markets, payments, and ways to decrease the barriers of fintech.
Absolutely. Agreed with what you said, Rob, about the need to kind of simplify the flow of logging into Web3 or really decreasing the sense of that you're dealing with something Web3 for the everyday user. But my question was more surrounding like, so that's the gateway of how you would enter into Web3. But what about when you're actually here? Even if it's incredibly easy for you to interact with Web3, why would people want to interact with Web3 in the first place if they can have the same experience in Web2 and they don't have the learning curve to have in the very first place? But I love the use case that you talked about just now, Monet. I do think, especially with a company that's based in the US, team members that have received largely American education, we tend to forget that the world is indeed a very large place and people have different interests, incentives to, when it comes to interacting with the web. That's a really exciting use case. And I think at CyberConnect, one of our goals this year actually is to also to expand even more into different emerging markets beyond China, but beyond Vietnam, where it's more development centric. We are actually working on a similar project glad that you guys touched on all of those topics because they're super consistent with what we, our team, are working on at CyberConnect. Okay, next question that I had for you. So a lot of the contexts that we talked about just now were kind of social centric. So when it comes to on-chain engagement, we were talking about the, the context of social media apps or dApps or platforms.
Number one, number two.
But meaningful engagements are
priorities
of meaningful context. What are
many allows
contexts that people can generate, own, or benefit from these engagement records?
I'll let you go first, Minna.
Sorry, when you say context, what are you referring to?
So, for example, we talked about just now why people want to be in a Web3 social, particularly,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Data, because it's easier to find groups of people through like sets. But those are social interactions. What are other ways to interact with Web3 in an on-chain manner that's beyond the social use case?
You must have friends on
totally. I think we can view Web3 as a layer that verifies information, and so there are a lot of enterprise and business use cases for how would a business want to segment their user groups, maybe in a loyalty program. They can use NFTs to segment their most engaged users and give them access to discounts and experiences. I think a lot of what the blockchain does in creating this like trusted environment is it actually creates an environment where it's easier to. I think the social part is a bit underrated because we basically are able to create relationships in a way that they're very aligned with like our own skin in the game and our own interests. Whereas in Web 2, there are all these signals that you can give that kind of make it harder to find to necessarily find your tribe. But I think the enterprise example is interesting with like loyalty groups. We've seen Starbucks and Disney launch those. I think those are kind of like enterprise and social, but yeah, that's one thought.
Renee, you're on fire today. Everything that you say is something that we're working on at CyberConnect because
let's go.
How familiar you are with our product Link3, but we have both. So Link3 profiles come in both organization profiles and personal profiles.
Yes. Okay.
So far, we have basically an event management feature because what is one thing that every single Web3 project does, but is still executed in a Web2 manner? AMAs. Yes. Everybody does these Discord AMAs, community calls, Twitter Spaces, but no one has really delivered the experience with truly Web3 elements attached to it. And one of the features that Link3 has is, the issuance of a proof of participation badge called WEST, which stands for Web3 Status Token, issued by they're hosting their events with Link3 to wallet addresses that are registered on their Link3 event page and coming to claim the token on their Link3 event page. And as a derivative use case of, the users having a verifiable way of showing that they were a part of your building journey, we were thinking, what if we make a loyalty program? What if we tap into the relationship that we've been able to help these Web3 projects build with their communities? So yeah, I love the enterprise use case as well. I'm really excited to hear that you are excited about that idea as well.
Yeah, awesome that you guys are building it. It seems like you guys are shipping on all cylinders.
Exactly. Amazing. And then last question that we collected from the audience, how to analyze on-chain engagement. So I think specifically that person probably meant, how do we measure on-chain engagement? How do we define what a meaningful on-chain engagement is? What are the metrics that we can use and how do we measure success?
Rob, I'll let you take this one because meaningful is always a very interesting term in
yeah. I was going to say, the word meaningful just introduces subjectivity to everything. So it really just depends whether you're like a DAO focused on like music NFTs, if you're a DeFi protocol, everyone's optimizing for different metrics. The key, especially on like looking for, from the investor side of things, if like anything from pre-seed to seed is like whatever metrics you're going to focus on, those are the ones that you like, if you could just prove out why you're focusing on them, that's all that matters. It is still like, it's cliche, but the Wild West on things where there's so many different things. We still consider TVL as like the North Star metric for vaults, which that really doesn't show like how liquid or like active, like it's something as we saw over the past couple of months, with exchanges blowing up, TVL really didn't mean anything. A lot of it is captured in like respective DAO tokens. So whatever metrics that you want to focus on specifically, whether it be user engagement or like user activity, like is that just like doing a like or a follow, and just like looking within like the keywords for that, similar to what I understand the entire product stack. That's what you really want to focus on. So I guess like a long-winded way to sum that up is there is no specific like metrics that one should follow. Always look back towards kind of like the Web2 traditional side, especially on social, and then from a financial side, like how much value is actually going through. Because over time, you want to see how important that value is that you can capture, and then overall that is like growing versus like, okay, we have everything in our vault, but if our vault is not with it, it's not providing any value to the end users at the end of the day.
Totally.
Love it. Okay, amazing. I think that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you to the both of you again for kind of tripping this out and just taking on a whole session by yourselves. Really appreciate your time and your energy. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Rob. Great seeing you guys.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Cheers.
Appreciate you guys. Bye. See ya.
Bye.
Okay, so we are heading toward the final hour of Connect 2023 Summit. What an incredible day it's been. I am so truly humbled by the intelligence that has been demonstrated today by all of our hosts and panelists, participants. I find such solace in seeing all these incredibly passionate and talented people working on, really cool use cases, thinking about these things, like how to solve real world problems in a decentralized manner, and also doing it with, so much zest and energy. Next up, we have a very exciting panel for you from the core of the CyberConnect team. A dear friend and our CEO, Wilson Wei, will be coming on to talk about CyberConnect, what our team is doing, what our vision is, what we're working on next. So, a sincere thank you to all of our investors and partners who have joined so far in our summit. At this point, we've pretty much reached agreements on what the ultimate horizon will be like for decentralized social, but more often than not, it feels like we're holding predefined maps, desperately looking for, or even worse, fabricating new territories. How can we shift gears, zoom in, get our hands dirty, and actually find specific use cases and create meaningful social experiences? Please welcome the CEO of CyberConnect, Wilson Wei, for a discussion on what's next for decentralized social. Good morning, Wilson.
Hey, Winnie.
How's it going?
Yeah, doing pretty good. It's early, but I'm good.
Good. Lots of energy in the house today. So yeah, Wilson has prepared a keynote speech for us for the beginning of his session. And then after Wilson gives the speech, we will be going into Q&A, where I will be asking Wilson certain questions about the sector, the company, and himself. So take it away, Wilson.
Sure. Thanks for hosting.
Of course.
Yeah, so it's not really a keynote speech. It's a pretty quick summary of what we have done in the past year, and also share a little bit originally why we started the project, and a little bit about our team. So I'll start with that. So we are a serial entrepreneurial team. We started our first startup back in Silicon Valley in 2017, when we were building Lino Blockchain, a decentralized content sharing platform, and also DLive.tv, which was once one of the biggest live streaming platform for games in a decentralized manner. So after our company got acquired in early 2020, we started to spend most of our time to think about like how Web3 social network is going to evolve in the future. And eventually we found this interesting problem where we saw influencers, especially with our experience with dealing with so many live streamers, we saw that influencers have this problem to promote or start over a channel cross-platform, and we asked ourselves, like, why is that? You should be able to bring your followers to different platforms, and there shouldn't be any barrier between platforms, right? And eventually we thought of, okay, the reason behind it is because like users on the internet, we have never actually owned our own data, including some of the most important social related data, your social graph, for example. For example, you spend years, a creator could spend years building up their YouTube channel, TikTok channel, Instagram channel, or whatever. And let's say they accumulated a pretty good amount of followers on one platform, and now they want to expand it to other platforms. They couldn't do it because those data are not accessible for them, and therefore they will have to re-bootstrap for every single new channel that they go with. I think back in the days when Facebook actually had their like API open so that you can bring your social graph to different apps. That was when a lot of the social games are really going well on the Facebook platform. But eventually they decided to turn it down, and therefore all the games and other social apps using that API got once back into the silo mode. So we wanted to change that, and therefore we start brainstorming on like how the Web3 technology, how blockchain could actually solve the problem. And that's why eventually we come up with the idea of CyberConnect, a social graph protocol that enable users to truly own their own social data. That includes digital identity as well. So after like almost 2 years in this journey, like I still believe it's still day zero for Web3 social, but our mission since the birth of CyberConnect of connecting everyone on Web3 remains unchanged. We're building this new future of social networking on the internet where users remain in complete control over their digital identity and social graphs, enabling them to travel seamlessly across different applications without experiencing UX issues posted by the incumbent Web2 social networks. I think are uniquely positioned to deliver on this ambitious mission because of our universal Web3 user account system, which many of you may never heard of. It's a new concept that we're coming up with. So this new universal Web3 user account system basically consists of three: one, your on-chain profile or ID system; two, a smart contract wallet, which is coming very soon. This is for the first time I announced this news. It's not like official yet. The official post will probably come in maybe sometime this year by the end of Q1, hopefully. And also the third part, social graph data modules. So we're trying to build this like one-stop solution for users to get onto the internet and sign up with email directly or log in with any Web2 social that they would love to, and seamlessly create their first self-sovereign wallet and also ID system on chain. So that's the plan for the next 6 months or maybe almost a year. So last year, we also make a major decision on start building our own flagship application, Link3. So first of all, like Link3, we have two major features. One is enabling organization and personal users to create their all-in-one link on-chain profile. And so far, we have onboarded and verified more than 1,000 organizations within the space, and also onboarded more than 22,000 users who minted their Link3 profile. Oh, by the way, Link3 profile is going to be created onto the protocol level called CC profile. And the second big feature of Link3 is enabling organizations to organize events on Link3. Most of them are AMA, some of them are panels or webinars like us. And we have hosted more than 2,000 events within the 6 months of the first 6 months of this feature. launch, participated by more than 400 different organizations. Right now, while I'm looking at the data, I think we're hosting more than 200 per week on a pretty consistent basis, and the data is just keep growing.
In your name.
And more and more users start interacting with each other through their profile system that's truly Web3 native. And that's something we're very excited about, finding out the real use cases for users to get to use Web3 stuff in a native way, but also a very user-friendly way. The reason why we started to build our own dApp, basically there are two major reasons. One, we want to remain user-centric and developer-centric by providing our own two end-user facing application. Get to know users better, get to know what they want, how they want the experience to be, so that we can provide a better set of tools from protocol level to developers. And second, obviously, we're trying to help bootstrap this initial network. The initial network is super important because we imagine the future when developers are making which account system I should pick. Should I stick with email login? Should I stick with login with MetaMask or in general just Wallet Connect? Or should I stick with some other MPC wallet solutions? I think back in the days when DeFi was super hype, all the wallet solution or all the wallet providers, they're only looking at basically one number is TVL. It's not too much about how much user adoption you have. It's very focusing on how much assets the user of your wallet have in their wallet. But I think moving forward, in order for Web3 applications to go mainstream, mass adoption, it's going to be a big topic. And for massive adoption, I think TVL, it's not going to be the key metrics. The key metrics would probably be, okay, how many users are using your account system with a wallet and plus a set of identity and social graph related data. And that would become the network, which would essentially become our core competency when developers are picking solution. They see, okay, you have coverage of these millions of users, and okay, another solution provider might have the same amount of users, but within CyberConnect, all the users have their own on-chain profile, identity, the WES that they collected, the social graph that they generated on our protocol. Everybody is connected with everybody else, and that becomes the network, and that's the network effect that we're trying to bootstrap. With this system, I think all the developers will be much, will have this powerful tool to solve their onboarding problem or the co-starting problem that they had with this large amount of data. So I think that's a very different and unique position that we're aiming. Moving forward, for this year, we're gonna keep focusing on two things. One is to increase the adoption for our universal